So we do have right now coming up Shadow Cartel versus Of Sound Mind. So we're going to throw that one to the commentator booth and see how this one turns out.
Hey guys, and welcome back to Jove Space, where we have a cracker of a match coming up for you. Two shield teams here in Shadow Cartel versus Of Sound Mind. Sound Mind bringing a Scimitar, a Rook, two Gilas, two Ishtars, a Serb, a Stork, a Bifrost, and a Worm. I'm joined again by the wonderful moderator. What have Shadow Cartel got for us?
Thanks, Apopny. So Shadow Cartel have brought a Scimitar as well, a pair of Orthrus, a Gila, two Cerberuses, a pair of Navy Ospreys, a Stork, and a Caracal. Shadow Cartel really opting for an all-in light missile comp setup, bringing a total of 7 light missile ships.
I'm really liking the synergy between missiles and drones here on the Of Sound Mind team, although the Rook seems a touch weird in this comp, but we'll have to see how it goes. We only have a few seconds till the match starts. Very excited. Here go the links. Watch that control bar rise, and here come the first few seconds of the match.
I'm really interested to see what Shadow Cartel will choose to primary off the bat. They have options in trying to headshot Logi, or they can choose to get rid of links in the Stork or the Bifrost, or even the Worm in the opening minutes. Both teams have warped in at max ranges, so we will see both teams try to close to range, and already Scimitars being painted for Shadow Cartel, and Of Sound Mind dropping quickly the Scimitar, having to run its ancillary shield booster. Scimitar now overheating his micro warp drive to try to pull range to get away from that light missile damage.
Yeah, it looks like both sides going for the Scimitar headshot to begin with. I'm super interested to see how well tanked that Rook is, as obviously as a shield Rook, the more tank you have, the less jams you have, the more jams you have, the less tank you have. It's a really hard shot. Both Scimitars taking a lot of damage here. The Of Sound Mind one bled into armor a little bit. The Scimitar of Erica, however, for Shadow Cartel, taking a lot more damage, having to boost a lot more often.
Yeah, and critically, Erica Durant has been webbed, but it's not by any ship. It's by apparently web drones that are on top of it. So, interesting choice to use that in this tournament. That's something we've seen a bit more. Right now, Ting King,
interestingly, safe. Going down, first Simi to go down. That is a big pick off in the DPS rage. Getting even just a few seconds lead on that Logi kill is a massive, massive success. Looks like the jams being spread across the Shadow Cartel team were not enough to give them the lead in that Logi trade. Webbing drones, super wild, super cool, and coming into great effect here. Now we have the Scimitar of Erica also falling, having run out of charges. But now Phoenix's Rook is already going down. Shadow Cartel are way ahead in the DPS race here.
Yeah, Shadow Cartel making me have to do a double take. Ting King being similarly named to the Pandemic Legion Logi pilot made me wonder what was going on. But speaking of things going on, that Rook being down means that Shadow Cartel is up a recon. They're up 12 points. Recons having dropped in point value from last year to this means that they're a more economic option. And that Navy Osprey is taking an appreciable amount of damage, having to run its ASB but not getting charges off quick enough. He's already down into low armor. The Gila also being tackled of Gremic, while Shadow Cartel's trying to trade out the Ishtar of Sully, who is not tackled by anything, just painted, running away for dear life, trying to get out of the range of these light missiles.
Yeah, I mean, you know, with the Logi traded, Of Sound Mind can definitely pull this back even though they're a ship down. It all depends on how they apply their damage, how they tackle, because obviously light missiles apply very poorly if the target's moving very fast. Those Ishtars are going to struggle if the target's moving very fast, even with heavy drones. Especially with heavy drones. We do have the Stork now dropped for Shadow Cartel. That was one of the things that really helped them tank with their links. Now we have a Navy Osprey going down as well, and they don't seem to be being able to make much of an impact on the Of Sound Mind team anymore.
Yeah, that Osprey got absolutely deleted. So one thing that we're seeing Of Sound Mind doing is that they're getting on top of this micro jump drive beacon. So as soon as one of them gets primary, they're going to use that to try to get out of range. This is one thing that drone ships have a great ability to do, that if they have drone link augmenters, they can fire the micro jump drive and be usually always in range. Light missile ships not being able to do that, but it's not mattering for Of Sound Mind. They've just lost M. Sully and the Bifrost of Giliame in the same server tick, more or less.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Shadow Cartel definitely kind of reaffirm, like, no, you took our Navy Osprey, but we'll take 2 of yours for every one of ours you take. I think Shadow Cartel still with a lead in this match. I don't think it's 100% over for Sound Mind left, but they are certainly very far behind. They are a ship down, and that ship is a very important one in the Ishtar.
Yeah, they needed to trade the Orthrus for the Ishtar at roughly the same time, which it looks like they're doing. But as we say that, Shadow Cartel has their entire core of damage left. Of Sound Mind has 2 Helas, a Cerberus, and really a Worm, but Shadow Cartel just has so much more damage. They've got the Orthrus, Hela, 2 Cerberuses, a Navy Osprey, and the Caracal. The Caracal being 4 points, just like the Worm, but having a lot more damage and a lot more projection, really showing that damage being applied as this Heal of Jacob Matthew is down into armor and is now gone, and Of Sound Mind not being able to answer at all for it.
Yeah, as well as web drones, Shadow Cartel look to be packing jam drones, which are especially helpful in these, fewer number of ship versus fewer number of ship fights. Single jam can remove, a quarter, a third, even a half of the opposing DPS when you're down to just a couple ships left in match. Shadow Cartel probably taking the victory here, but a bloody one at that. Of Sound Mind, even though they've lost, they put up a good fight. And to be fair, it isn't technically over yet.
Yeah, this was really exciting. It's just that Shadow Cartel knew what their win conditions were, so they went about working at the Scimitar, working at the Rook, and then chewing at the core, and they were just able to do what they needed to faster than Of Sound Mind could trade out ships. But as I say that, they've been able to drop a Gila, Shadow Cartel, and Shadow Cartel being on possibly a rapid light reload, just now coming off that reload, we're seeing more damage applied to Tyrion, and he has now fallen off.
Yeah, I mean, I think the difference in this match, personally, I'm not a big fan of the Rook, but I think that Shadow Cartel were definitely much cleaner in their execution. I really like the use of webbing drones here. Typically, when was the last time you used webbing drones on TQ, right? But here, they served a very specific, very useful purpose, and the Shadow Cartel team just felt a lot tighter and a lot more fine-tuned than the Of Sound Mind team. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, by and large. I mean, we did see some good things from Of Sound Mind. They tried to get on top of these Monk Drive beacons and pull away. Unfortunately, it didn't work for them, as the Cerberus of Erasmus is now going to pop, but they had the right idea. They had a good conceptual thought process, but they weren't able to execute it as well as Shadow Cartel did. But that thought process working for them will serve them greatly into the lower bracket. Shadow Cartel taking the match reasonably decisively, but not cleanly.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to Of Sound Mind's near inevitable lower bracket run by looking at how good they looked here. Really hoping they manage to make it a few more games deep in the tournament so we can see more out of them. However, as the last 2 ships fall, it will be a victory for Shadow Cartel as good fights are dropped in local, both sides respecting each other well. And that's one of the things I really enjoyed today. Everyone in the comments, there's a bunch of banter going on Reddit, what have you. Teams themselves, especially, are being very respectful, saying, hey, great fight, thanks for coming, hope to see you again, hope to fight you next year, oh, you nearly had us. It's really great sportsmanship coming out from the teams today. And with that last worm falling, we are about to send it back to the studio with the boys.
This program is rated MA. It contains adult themes, coarse language, sexual references, and violence.
Can I ask you kind of a weird question?
Do you want to play some spaceships with me?
Welcome back. That exciting match there. Shadow Cartel taking it, not convincingly, but definitely taking the points there. Now, that was, we saw there, both teams electing to take command destroyers to provide their links, no other command ships. Brett, I believe you wanted to talk a little bit about command destroyers and the choice that poses there.
Yeah, because command destroyers do something a lot different from the battle cruisers and command ships we see. While all battle cruisers can bring links and command ships can bring links, also links can be applied to command ships. And the one thing that command ship does, which is different than all of these battle cruisers, is they provide a lot of bonuses to mixed links. So you can fit like a Bifrost with both shield links and speed links, and it can provide a really good bonus in a really small ship. And it's a ship that's not easily kind of headshot in other matches. It can't go against these big battlecruiser comps, and they have a little bit of trouble hitting the destroyers and some of the smaller ships, which is why I think they do very well, is because they're small, they're compact, they're low points, and they bring a lot to the table.
Yeah, now that was a shield drone comp. I think that is the first shield drone comp we've seen. So Tony, you mentioned it looks like there's been some targeted banning there. It looked like maybe they wanted to go shield armor, I should say, but they were forced into shield. What do you think about that choice there?
Yeah, I don't think the shield drone comp is quite as strong as the armor drone comp. I think losing out on the EOS, which was banned away, we also saw Nearest ban and Guardian ban, so taking away the armor logis from those drone comps. I guess Soundmind wanted to run that. Also, we saw the EOS banned as well, the prime link ship to run in that comp. So I think the Soundmind decided to bring healers instead, and they didn't quite work as well. It's a bit weird too. I think they had Cerberuses mixed in there. Whereas the Shadow Cartel just brought a rapid light team. It looked a lot more solid. It looked more like something that they tested rather than of Sound Mind, which seems like they got taken away with the bans a bit. Because I believe of Sound Mind brought the armor drone comp in the feeder rounds, and I think the bans must have just shut them down a bit there.
So do you think that was just really good meta playing by Shadow Cartel there, targeted ban, force them to run something maybe they're not entirely comfortable with, and then just exploiting that fact?
Yeah, banning away the armor logis is a very good tactic because it opens up all these shield setups, and I think the shield setups tend to be a lot more finesse focused than the armor setups. So Shadow Cartel, I believe, going that way because they think they can outplay of Sound Minds. Shadow Cartel, a team that has reasonable degree of execution and skill. So
yeah, exactly. Now we mentioned shield versus armor, so let's just talk about that a little bit. Now, your armour teams tend to have a bit more just raw tank. They're a bit more DPS oriented, less kitey. Brett, I mean, if you could choose, which would you go for, shield or armour?
I think as we've seen, armour has a lot more options open to them. And the one thing armour does quite well as compared to shield is armour takes much less damage from these kind of heavy missile comps that we see quite a lot. Stuff with the, not so much as in this AT, but as in last year with the Fleet Typhoons, they apply a lot more damage to, say, shield battle cruisers and shield cruisers as compared to armour. So if you go with armour, you're a little bit slower, but you keep that, you don't have that vulnerability to a lot of shield, a lot of missile comps that you have in shield comps.
Yeah, now speaking of, we're going to pull up a graph now, and this graph is going to be win percentage of popular ships so far. Now, as you can see here, this is pretty much your core for the armoured drone comp that we've seen so far, quite a lot in this Alliance tournament. You've got the Hyena providing the long-range webs, and then you've got 3 drone boats, one after the other, the Ishtar, the Myrmidon, and the Vexor. The Myrmidon, of course, providing links a lot cheaper than the EOS, so that's potentially why that one is being picked so high and winning so well. Now, the next ones we're seeing is that new sort of battle cruiser core, and then finally the nearest pulling up. And there's quite a big drop-off after that down to the Daredevil, as the Daredevil, although it's filling in slots, a lot of teams are doing that, including the losing teams, where I think what we're seeing here is a meta starting to develop already. Now, so Tonya, looking at this, do you think that this will continue along these trends through the rest of the Alliance tournament, or do you think that teams will start to look at ways to counter this drone comp, and we'll start to see these ship picks and the win percentage drop off?
Yeah, I think we'll see a shift more towards shield doctrines in the later stages of the AT, when people start realizing that they can ban Vexor Navy issue, that they can ban battlecruiser core picks instead of banning just armor logi or other ships.
Yeah, definitely. Now, we also have another graph that we can pull up which shows direct comparison between armor and shield. which is being prepared by Alexei, our statsman in the back right now. So in the meantime, we'll go back to talking about the armor versus shield. Now, shield, of course, much higher signature radius in a lot of these ships. Once you start fitting shield extenders, you make your small ships much more vulnerable to being headshot by high damage comps, especially these battle cruisers, which are going to be able to track a lot better. A good example would be we saw some tracking disrupted battle cruisers just being unable to apply to anything earlier on when they're fighting against an armor comp. Now, armor, I'm being told, is actually completely undefeated into shield so far. Now, so Tony, what do you make of that?
It's fairly unsurprising to me. I think the shield setups take a lot more finesse, and I also think a lot of the armor setups are stronger right now because the bans aren't as targeted as they could be.
Exactly. Now, we are going to throw up that graph right now. We can see here the picks versus win rate. So armor just so far dominating with picks and just completely dominating with wins. Shield dropping and only winning, I believe, against another shield comp. So that's very interesting, and I think we will definitely see, as Tony mentioned, shield comps starting to become a bit more popular towards the end of the tournament, especially when we see teams pulling out those additional comps that they've got hidden away. They don't want to show them earlier on in the tournament. Now, talking of showing comps, if you're, let's say you're the Tuskers and you're going up against a team like Red Alliance, what do? Do you bring one of the comps that you know you're definitely going to win, or do you gamble that you can execute a sort of lower tier comp and win comfortably against what could be perhaps a Clowny all-in? Brett, what do you think about that?
I think a lot of the better teams know what's going to be kind of like the flavour of the month. So what they've been doing is, as we've been seeing a lot, is they've been bringing what everybody else is going to think is popular, and they're just going to get that out the way, and they've practiced with it, and they're going to win with superior piloting, so that none of their kind of pocket compositions are actually revealed here. They just confirm what everybody else knows, but it's maybe even a double blind. Maybe they're pushing people into thinking that kind of stuff is the best, and they've already planned a counter to it. You can't go too much into this because you'll just end up there going what ifs.
Yeah, you can always end up getting inside your own head, and I do believe we see sometimes teams getting in the head of the other opponent's team with the banning and the targeted and getting inside even their own heads. And there's definitely teams that lead the meta and teams that copy what they see. Some teams can do that very well, other teams can't, and then we start to see this like drop off through the tournament. Now, we are going to talk about the next match for a little bit. So the next match coming up very soon is Dreamfleet versus Project Mayhem. So Tonya, what do you know about Dreamfleet? What can you tell us about them?
Dreamfleet are a Russian alliance, and they've done very well in the last 2 or 3 ATs. I believe they're a top 16 team.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And they're pretty strong, and they know the meta, and I think Project Mayhem did pretty poorly last year. I believe they got knocked out by a band apart. I think a lot of the low-sec alliances, like, unironically, ended up getting knocked out by a band apart.
Yeah, I think this year, due to the fact that the feeders have kind of filtered out some of the teams that maybe just applied for the sake of it in previous years, we do have just a generally higher quality overall. I mean, I would go as far to say there's at least 32 top 16 teams this year, so I think competition is just going to be a lot higher. Do you think that Project Mayhem are going to take this one, or do you think that this was going to be quite comfortably going to Dreamfleet there, Estonia?
I'm not too sure about Project Mayhem. They seem... I think they're a very risky pick. They didn't do too well last year. I don't really know too much about them this year. So I would probably go with Dreamfleet. We know they're a top 16 team. They've made it 3 times, so I think they'll take it.
Brett, what about yourself?
As you were saying, we've not seen much of them this year. We didn't see them last year either, Project Mayhem. They didn't make it into the Alliance Tournament 14. They were in our feeders, but due to the fact that Low, Sek, Schneier, Schlupen did not turn up due to the fact that the time zone differences, they'd all have to wake up at 4 o'clock. I have been told they all looked at the time and went, no, we're not turning up. Project Mayhem got a free pass into the AT through the feeders.
Indeed, so that was Lo Shek Neats Salupdidup, as Elise likes to call them, giving Project Mayhem a pass into the tournament. So this is really their chance to show what they've got. Are they just sort of, a bit of a meme team, they're going in for a bit of fun, or are they going to take it seriously and give Dreamfleet a good run for their money? That is really going to be the question here. So I personally always like to kind of vote on the underdogs. It always just feels that when I'm right, I can then, smug it up a little bit. So I'm going to go for Project Mayhem. So Tonya?
I'm going to go with Dreamfleet. Just, we know they're consistent, they're good.
Yep, and Brett, go for it.
I'm going to go for Dreamfleet because I think they're really kind of... they're a lot underrated. They did well 2 years ago. They did well last year. I think they're going to do good.
So that is 2 for Dreamfleet, 1 for Project Mayhem. So I'm going to throw this one to the guys in the booth for this match now.